Let's talk with Dudley Dawson, our man at Hogs Illustrated and Whole Hog Sports. Been a while since we caught up with him. Dudley, how you doing, man? Good to have you back on.
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm all right. Give us a health update. I know you'd had a stroke recently. You had to be in the hospital, but I know you've been out. How you feeling? Is everything in working condition?
Yeah, pretty much. May 21st, I had 3 strokes in one day. I guess I decided to overachieve that day, and I ended up having to, basically take the summer off and rest up and get back in shape, and I've done pretty much that. And I guess August 3rd, I'm going to get to come back to work part-time writing, and then August 17th full-time. I guess I couldn't have picked a better summer to have quote-unquote taken off with everything that's going on. But I'm looking forward to both getting back to watching sports and writing about sports and then just being involved again.
Right, yeah. And so I'll ask the general question from your perspective that we've asked a lot of people, and I truly believe there isn't a single sports journalist who doesn't want football to be played in the fall. We work in sports because we love them and are kind of addicted to them in some cases. But I think we also look at things from various perspectives when you come from when you're a journalist, which you are. So, do you think that a fall football season can be pulled off with all of the mitigating factors about college campuses and student athletes and the fact that, college and professional sports are completely different industries, and I'm not sure if they can take their cues from each other?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I do think it can be possibly pulled off, whether it'll be a 12-game schedule, 10-game schedule, 8-game schedule, we'll have to see. But I think one of the things that, you have to be encouraged about is really the number of positive cases these days with kids on campus is not very big at all. We saw a lot of numbers when Clemson and Ohio State and them first got to camp, and you certainly had Hunter Yurchek talking about how many Arkansas had. But yeah, I think it can happen, and we've seen that in these situations with exhibition baseball and NASCAR and all these things. So they can be pulled off, but it's going to people with higher pay grades than us are going to make those decisions, and once they make them, they're going to have to live with them, because if you do get another spike, then you'll probably have to call the season off, and how's that going to work? But I know that a lot of people, both inside athletics and outside athletics, are hoping that they can come to some type of term. I don't see a lot of fans being at stadiums, if much. I know that the NFL's talking about 10 to 25,000 and social distancing and all that. But I think the SEC as a league and Big 12 and ACC all want to do something and get it done. And we'll just have to see how it plays itself out. But I hope, I'd love to write feature stories, but you can only feature so much, and you need some actual games to kind of move the narrative down the line.
What's your sense about high school sports in Arkansas? Texas has already pushed back the start of all the seasons, in some cases by, I think, a month and a half for the highest classifications. We know what California did. Virginia's pushed the season off to the fall. The AAA said, based upon what the governor says, we are planning on-time schedules for the fall season. That doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. And when the dominoes start falling in nearby states, it does make you wonder as to whether there will be a fall sports season in the AAA.
Yeah, certainly. I know that there are a lot of coaches and a lot of players who want to go ahead and do that. I think one thing that, is a positive for Arkansas is that we're not a big state, and you have a lot of schools who won't have to drive very far to play these games. And, unlike college games and pro games and all that, it's down there and back, pretty much on a bus. So, we'll see how it plays itself out. But I do think that the size of our state kind of helps. And I do know that, that while we have had a lot more positive cases lately, I think that the fact that they're pushing so hard to go back to school, if you can go back to school, then I think you can play football. So it can't be one or the other.
Speaking to Dudley Dawson here on Halftime. So, Dudley, when you take into consideration everything that's happening with professional sports, with Major League Baseball not having a 0.1% testing positive rate among teams. The NBA has 0 positive tests. MLS, the same thing. Do you take this with a grain of salt as far as with like SEC football, high school football, or can both of these leagues and organizations take something away from how MLB, NBA, MLS is kind of conducting business right now?
Well, I think the bubble concept has been really good for all those sports. And, I think that you can use a modified bubble situation when it comes to high school sports. College may be a little bit more difficult, but, I think that, the big thing, obviously, with pro sports is they get tested pretty much every day, I guess. And there's a lot of complaints about people not being able to get tested in the regular public and athletes being able to do that. But at the same time, money talks, So, but I think it's I guess you had a situation this week where Osceola has had to stop practice because they've had some people that came into contact with somebody who has it, and I guess it's going to be a modified bubble concept in high school, and they'll just do everything they can. But again, we're just one little spike and one little situation away from getting it going again. I think one of the best things that's been put out there is, and I'm not telling people to wear a mask. You can wear a mask if you want, you don't. I'm going to. I have an autoimmune disease, so I'm going, and I look far better in a mask than I do without one. So I'm going to wear the mask. But I think if you really want football and want to be able to attend high school games, that's something you're going to have to do. And I just hope we move along here. The vaccine comes, not too far down the line, and I think we pretty much everybody can agree now that it's patriotic to wear a mask, from what I heard.
Now, I want to ask you this too, because you've seen some of the smaller leagues move to postponing their games, some pushing them back, like Phil was talking about with the high school football, some Texas going to September. You see some of the other leagues pushing all their fall sports to the spring. In your opinion, would you rather try to do everything possible to do it in the fall, or maybe try to push into the spring because you've seen, maybe not necessarily traction, but you're seeing a lot of reports of maybe a vaccine coming soon, or different things that could potentially try to curve COVID-19. But you see, if you move it to the spring, and I've said it, Phil said it, I'm sure you'll agree too, it's going to be hard to pull off, say, SEC football in the spring. But if that's your only option, it's better than no option. I'm just kind of curious where you fall in that argument.
Well, I think you should do everything you can to play in the fall. And, I know that there are conferences that have wiped things out, and they have to do what they think is best for them. But I think you're going to, if you push football to the spring, number one, I think you would have some kids who wouldn't play.
Right.
That would, that protect themselves for the NFL or NBA or whatever. But I just think, there's a reason that sports are played when they're destined to be played, or at least they try to do that, because it gives everybody the opportunity to go see as many different sporting events as they can. You're going to get a lot of people, bust up and maybe not go into games if it gets into a sport where you got everybody out in spring, or some sports are going to suffer from the others. But the number one thing I would say is I just think that if the health people and the politicians decide that, again, I'm going to go back to this school thing. If kids are on campus in college, if they're on campus in high schools, if that's okay to do, then I think it's okay to play sports. Now, if they're not on campus, certainly that you've got a valid reason there. But I think that should be equated together, not two different decisions.
Well, I tell you why they want to make sure that they play it in the fall for these, places like the SEC and most of the Power Five. It's because without it, athletic departments blow up, implode, local communities, campus economy, and everything around the area, the region that these campuses are located, that economy could implode too. And I mean, we can say, yeah, the country needs football emotionally, but financially, these communities, these campuses also need football.
Yeah, absolutely. Every day up here, and I'm sure across the state, across the country, there are restaurants and bars and essential businesses closing down because of the situation we've got into. So it's one big old economic package altogether.
So the last thing I want to touch on, I saw, and we'll switch gears here. Today's the 58th birthday of one Alvin Robertson, who, of course, all-time great Razorback, 7th overall pick of the '84 draft. Do you think that Alvin is occasionally overlooked as an all-time great Razorback?
Absolutely, and I think part of that has to do with, obviously he's had some issues, in the not-too-distant future, and I think that weighs into some people's minds as well. But he was an incredible basketball player. I know that he would have been probably the best boxer I've ever seen, having watched him and Robert Brandon go at it in the locker room back during his time here. But he was a phenomenal athlete out of Barberton, Ohio. And both offensively and defensively, he just helped make those early '80 teams. And yeah, I agree with you. He's overlooked, and much like Lindsey Howe, who obviously just passed away, and so sorry to hear that, and prayers for his family and all that. But he was overlooked as well. But those were key component guys. All
right, Dudley, it's good to have you back, man.
Glad
to hear
well.
that you're feeling well, and we'll look forward to having you on again sometime soon.
Good to be back. I got some exhibition baseball to watch. 3.
That's exactly right. And we've got our baseball fantasy league now going too. I skipped out on that draft yesterday and just let auto draft do the thing for me.
That'll probably help.
Yeah, it'll probably be a lot better than the team I would have picked. It's one thing you'll find about me here, SmackDown. I might have a decent idea about baseball.
Yeah,
I stink at fantasy baseball. Can't do it. Part of it is that I forget to set lineups. I just never made it a big part of my day. I guess I'm going to have to try to get back into it at some point because, well, I've got a team, and I guess I'm supposed to make a lineup in a starting rotation. So we'll figure that out maybe in the next 24 hours because the season starts tomorrow. And, oh, by the way, cherry on the top, Change My Mind is next.